Sorry for keeping you busy morning. How you doing? Good to see you. Thank you for everything. Okay, so missed you last week, so I wanted to make sure we had our briefing on this week. And I know that pulled together pretty much, I would say, for you all notice, a little last minute simply because I was actually supposed to be at Adopt the Block this morning. And I have, our chiefs there, leadership there, something very coordinated referencing trafficking in our community as well as prostitution and the like along Chef Mentor Highway. But it's been a coordinated effort that brought about Adopt the Block, which is our first one on today. But I really did not want to pass up having a briefing, and so that's why I'm kind of split and running a little bit behind. So I do apologize for that. But I'll start with giving you a couple of updates as I do, and then we'll go into questions and answers from you all. So with that, I do start with public safety, and even looking at the week of April 16th through the 22nd, compared to the previous week, we still continue to see, again, fewer non-fatal shooting incidents, non-fatal shooting victims, sexual assaults, and total crimes against persons than the previous week. However, last week was still, kind of shook me relative to juvenile crime in the city. Particularly involving even two young people that were recently released from our Juvenile Justice Intervention Center that had conditions that I believe should have been looked upon a little bit more as it relates to our juvenile court judges, if you will. Concerning two, had ankle monitors on and only realizing that very little monitoring was actually going on. This has prompted, and even prior to this, my Commissioner Tanisha Stevens, had reached out and has reached out to our juvenile court partners in order to coordinate another meeting so that, again, pushing for accountability at every level and focusing, again, heavily on monitoring as well as review of conditions prior to juveniles being released. This is something, again, that is concerning, but there is a meeting that will be held on tomorrow with our juvenile court judges and partners that has been spearheaded by our commissioner, meaning Commissioner Stevens. Again, addressing this holistically and as a top priority as it's been, but again, the New Orleans Police Department continues to engage every day, no doubt about that. The Special Operations Division that's deployed strategically by our superintendent continues to bear a great fruit for our community. I have to say, listening to those calls at night and seeing how they're not only orchestrated, but the action that is being deployed in real time is something that I'm just so proud of relative to the men and women that serve in this community on the streets every day, and particularly under the SOD. Armed robberies continues to see down 23%. Carjackings down 51%. Again, non-fatal incidents are down 17%. Non-fatal shooting victims down 11. Homicides 11% down. As of April the 22nd, NOPD continues to be very active in our coordinating efforts with U.S. Marshal, also with ATF and the like. Total guns off the street, 1,002 so far this year, and that is compared to 711 guns seized the same time, I would say, as we look at the year prior. So getting these guns off the street just continues to be that top priority. In addition, I would say ensuring that individuals with warrants for their arrests, that they're made. And that is something that we continue also to work in consultation with the U.S. Marshal, where we've asked for additional manpower, if you will, on the streets, working in alignment with the New Orleans Police Department. And so I'm hopeful there to see, again, fruits of that labor coming. We did have the U.S. Marshal in the city of New Orleans this week during training of over 30 officers relative to the U.S. Marshals. I mentioned the Adopt a Block that's actually happening right now, and I do want to say that it is also in coordination with our Greater New Orleans Human Trafficking Task Force. This has led to providing services to over 700 victims, training more than 3,800 community members, and of course our law enforcement partners conducting more than 670 investigations and making over 250 arrests. Sex trafficking in our community often times, referred to as a hidden problem. And, our victims are really not prone to come forward. So this will continue to be a priority for me and my administration, as well as focusing on just a holistic approach relative even to prostitution in our community. And if you drive along Chef, it's concerning. You see groups of women, men, if you will, various ages, black and brown primarily, and it's concerning. So this is led again to the Adopt a Block. Jazz Fest, good news. Jazz Fest starting, we know, this Friday. We're expecting record numbers, I would say, this year. Once again, 2019, we saw, 2022, we saw 2019 numbers, and we're just feeling that it's going to continue to trend for Jazz Fest 2023. We're expecting a record number for the first day, and I'm told because Lizzo will be performing, and of course we're proud to have our own performing in our Jazz Festival. On yesterday, I did have my Jazz Fest briefing with my public safety team in various departments. We did put out a statement relative to that, and we will just continue to share information so that our residents, so that our visitors can be prepared to enjoy themselves in our city for Jazz Fest. We do have a low barrier shelter cleanup that has been organized by Nathaniel Fields. Now that will be on this Friday, the 28th, from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. And we do not believe that the start of Jazz Fest will have a negative impact on this. We have a very caring community relative to our homeless population. And so I just want to say thank you to the partners and, of course, to Nathaniel for organizing this. And this will be one of many as we just focus heavily on homelessness. It just continues to be that top priority. We have given you information on resources that we have been able to garner relative to HUD, relative to the business community, providing even a match to that, as well as the City of New Orleans allocating $10 million specifically to homelessness out of our ARP allocation, that direct allocation that continues just to work for us in a tremendous way. I also wanted to mention, and John, will have you go to Q&A, and then that will get me, I would say, more focused on some other things that I wanted to share that is not coming to mind right now. So John, kick us off.
Starting with deputy issue.
I have two things. One, you mentioned teen crime. The summer months are coming up. So what's the plan in place to prevent some of the situations you talked about from happening again. And then two, you know, the recent crime you talked about, you said it really did touch you. Yesterday we had 2 women shot and killed. One of them was a mother with a baby in her back seat. So just your reaction to that incident.
Sure. So, you know, both currently are still under investigation. I can't give you all of the facts that I have, and so definitely concerning. A mother, no doubt about it, I am. All the mothers in our community, but clearly it did rock our community as a whole, whether you're a parent or not. What I am happy about, I would say, is that the 2-year-old is in good care, but definitely under investigation, and there are some facts, again, that's affiliated with those incidents that I cannot share at this time, but understand that our superintendent will be addressing this with the media, but at the same time, as much as we can share, she will share, but I will say it is also aligned with individuals that are a part of criminal activity and violent crime in our city as well. The other piece you mentioned was about juvenile crime, but particularly summer months, I believe. And so in preparation for summer months, I will share that Superintendent Woodford has taken steps to prepare our city for our summer months. She, over a week plus, has submitted a letter to our partners with the Louisiana State Police, as they've always been engaged, you know, as they're always a part of our unified command, but we also always make sure that we document properly, making that official ask, and she, on behalf of the city, has done that, and of course I have as well. You know, asking for Operation Eagle 3.0 to come back to the city of New Orleans. She's asked for Operation Golden Eagle to start a little bit sooner than June 1. So we're asking for this to be jump-started or kick-started this year in the month of May. We've also asked for additional help with enforcement along our interstate, as well as traffic violations and the like. We have also just asked for just additional, again, support relative to Operation Golden Eagle that has also had an impact, I would say, on violent crime, but also juvenile crime. Our superintendent is also looking to move forward with a curfew once again for our summer months. More information around our strategy relative to our summer and juvenile crime will be forthcoming and will be shared with you directly by our superintendent. What I will share is that the strategy is in the works, and I know that I am very supportive in that. But giving you the granular details will be forthcoming, and it will not be, it won't take a long time to get there, but it's just actively in motion right now. And you also mentioned, you know, what are we doing? And I mentioned previously about a coordinated meeting that will be held on tomorrow with juvenile court and our partners relative to our juveniles in our city, and looking always as a holistic approach, and we will continue on that path and on that trajectory. But what we're seeing in OPD continues to make solid arrests, and we just need other partners relative to the criminal justice system to be held accountable as well and responsible for, again, public safety and sustained efforts in the city.
The advocate and Dan Foxy.
Mayor, earlier you mentioned with respect to 2 juveniles who have been released on monitoring, and I think that you said that the conditions should have been looked at more closely. Can I ask you just to clarify just a little bit more in that, were you referring specifically to these 2 cases and that monitoring wasn't appropriate, or were you referring to the monitoring system overall and its shortcomings?
So what I'm referring to, I would say, is both. One's concerning that juveniles have monitors, ankle monitors that are not being monitored. That's one. The second is the fact that these young people were already arrested, of course, by the New Orleans Police Department, but quickly released as well, and only and rearrested. So what I'm saying is that I'm asking for our juvenile court judges to look very heavily at the conditions relative to these young people, what they're doing, the crimes that they are committing in the city of New Orleans, that for me, which as well as my public safety team, we believe that they need to be held, that they do not need to be released, that they need to sit down. And that's why we have Juvenile Justice Intervention Center, a correctional facility that gives great care and a place to keep these young people that are committing violent acts in our city off the street. They need to be off the street and held.
One more quick one. You mentioned that the superintendent will be addressing these shootings yesterday of women in cars. I think you said that she's going to be addressing them both at the same time.
I didn't say that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. What I said was the superintendent, as always, will give you updates relative to investigations that are happening that are affiliated with violent acts in the city.
Okay.
Fox 8.
Gotcha. St. Charles Parish is suing FEMA. I'm sure you heard about the insurance maps that are kind of not in their favor, really spiking up a lot of the insurance flooding hikes and things like that. Any thought on that? And maybe Orleans getting in possible litigation with FEMA over that?
Well, I actually, on today, I have my quarterly meeting with our FEMA regional director, not just giving updates on FEMA dollars and projects that are associated with those projects, infrastructure projects in our city, but we will go even a little bit deeper. So I will withhold any comments relative to St. Charles Parish and the impacts on Orleans Parish until I have real dialogue with our FEMA leadership, and we work very well together on behalf of this city.
WWL.
Back to the two mothers that were shot in separate incidents in their car yesterday. The father of the woman who died said that he wishes his daughter would have left town. He's advising other people to leave, and unfortunately we've heard people express that as they're concerned about the crime. Just can you share a response to that, and maybe what you would say to this father who is of course in grief?
Well, first of all, condolences to the father, to the family. No parent, right, should have to bury their child. But what I will say, and without giving any facts relative to the investigations that are happening, what we are seeing is that people who are in these violent acts or associated with are also associated with some criminal activity in the city of New Orleans. Not speaking specifically to this particular mother, things are under investigation. What I will also say is that the city of New Orleans, which is clearly demonstrated by our crime trends and the work that the New Orleans Police Department continues to do, is moving our percentages in the right direction. The city is becoming safer every week. But again, we are still experiencing violent crime. And so we'll continue to focus and be relentless in our approaches. And even my plea to our criminal justice system, every partner affiliated and associated with it, doing its part, because we're only as effective, as our ability to work together and to ensure that there are no gaps in our system. And when there are gaps in our system, it affects public safety, and it affects the safety of our residents as well as our visitors in our city. And so just again, we have to continue to push for accountability.
And then one other thing, is there any reason to believe they could be connected in any way, the two incidents?
To my knowledge, no, but again, these matters are under investigation and actively.
Do you think there needs to be a change up or a different way we should be doing ankle monitors here in Orleans Parish? Because there have been multiple instances where monitoring wasn't being done or an ankle monitor wasn't even put on someone's ankle.
Well, I think clearly. I think because of the outcomes that I referenced earlier, absolutely. I believe that the ankle monitors are a tool, but they're not an effective tool if they're not used properly. And if they're not being monitored, which is monitoring that juvenile that has crossed the line regarding violent crime in our city, then it will have a negative impact, I would say, on public safety, a negative impact on that juvenile, and just a negative impact overall.
Do you think that the sheriff's office should be taking that role over like some of the other parishes, or who should be in charge of these ankle monitors?
Well, OJJ actually is responsible for that now, and I believe that it has to be closely looked at. What I will say is that I have charged our Commissioner Stevens, along with our public safety team, also, Homeland Security and Public Safety. We're looking at this holistically, and make no mistake about it, this will be a part of our conversations on tomorrow. We have to get it right. It's a priority to get it right, and that's what I will say on that matter right now.
They asked all the hardball questions, so I'm going to go back to Jazz Fest. So without the crawfish bread this year, what will you be eating? And then what Lizzo song sort of sums up your leadership style?
Oh, Lord, don't even do that to me. I can't even think of, listen, I'm so quick to think about a song, But Lizzo has been very empowering to women, and to women, making them feel and letting them feel that they can be and should be good in their own skin. And so with that, I believe that you will have just record numbers on Fridays simply because of how she has empowered women. And I think women in the state of Louisiana could use some empowerment, can use some love, and especially from one of our own. And so I'm looking forward to that. I'm also looking forward to this crawfish strudel. So if you haven't had it, you really need to. Yeah, it's so good. And the crawfish bread, well, crawfish strudel.
Okay, thank you.
Just one more. Can you share anything more about this meeting tomorrow? What are you hoping to accomplish from it? What will happen after it?
Sure. So first of all, the meeting tomorrow will be held, as I mentioned. And what do I hope to accomplish is a unified effort and more cooperation and really looking at cooperation from our juvenile court judges and a stronger partnership and collaboration. That's what I'm hoping to gain, and not wanting to revisit the example that I gave about these two juveniles on last week.
Quick question: who's actually monitoring these devices?
Well, right now it doesn't seem like any monitoring is going on, and so that will be a part of our conversations on tomorrow.
Is it a police officer
No.
assigned to juvenile, or is it?
The police, the NOPD does not monitor, so no.
I'm
There
just
are
curious what the title of a person that's supposed to be doing that.
the OJJ, to my knowledge, is overseeing these ankle monitors. The juvenile court judges are affiliated with that as well. The New Orleans Police Department, because you brought it up, they have a juvenile division, a bureau, but the NOPD does not have any interaction with that at all. But this is something that we will be talking about on tomorrow, and again, just wanting to work out a real collaboration with our partners and greater accountability across the board.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, your thoughts on council passing new guidelines as far as how to use the pentabla?
Well, that will not have any impact on me at all and how I utilize the pentabla.
Any last question, WDSU?
There's been a lot of criticism, and people have been kind of talking more about your executive detail over the past few months, an excessive amount almost. But my question is, do you still believe that your executive detail should be running errands and doing stuff like that?
Absolutely. I need my executive protection detail. It's very important to my ability to do my job. And so I see, especially in this capacity, as mayor of the city, especially even as a woman doing this job, and with the family. So yes, I will continue to utilize my executive protection detail just as every other mayor prior to me, and it's never going under any scrutiny at all, and it's very concerning that this is the issue.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Happy Jazz Fest.